Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the importance of Biz Markie for the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition design team, and also for Dungeon Masters. So, who's Biz Markie? I'm not going to assume everybody knows. I certainly know who Biz Markie is. So this week, Biz Markie died. Right? So it was very unfortunate. It was, it was a great loss to American culture. It was a great loss to the rap community. But there are some hard lessons that the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition design team, and actually, I guess, you know what? Here's the lessons from Biz Markie's life ring true, I think, for the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition design team. They ring true for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition Dungeon Masters, and they ring true for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition players. And I'll talk about each one of them. So, first of all, he gave 2 hard lessons. So Biz Markie was a really interesting rapper. So he died, and I went to my wife and I was like, "Do you remember Biz Markie?" And the rapper Biz Markie, and she says like, "I don't remember any rappers." And I'm like, "I know you know his hook, right?" And she's like, "His hook," and I was like, "You got what I need, but you say he just a friend, but you say he just a friend." Right, like, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Right? Like, and the thing is, everybody remembers that. Like, that was a thing. It was definitely a thing, right? That song blew up, right? Now, when it blew up, that was Biz Markie's by far his biggest hit. In fact, I don't know if Biz Markie ever had another hit, right? But he hit with that song, and when he hit, he jumped on, he jumped on everything he could. He rode that wave as well as he could ride it, right? And honestly, I love that song, and I loved Biz Markie just for that song, and I thought he did a great job. And so when he died, I remembered his song, and I remembered him, right? So now we're going to squeeze Biz Markie's life for the juice for the D&D 5th edition design team, for D&D 5th edition Dungeon Masters, and D&D 5th edition players. So what 2 lessons did he teach us? 1, curation, right? Today, the most valuable skill in the world, in my opinion, is curation. We are in a world of saturation, right? You want to play a good video game? Who knows what a good video game is, right? And when you go to search what a good video game is, all you're going to find is people got paid off by certain groups to tell you that what a good video game is. They or may not be publishers of video games, right? You're going to find a bunch of picks from bad video game players and bad, people who don't really have good taste, right? It is going to be outrageously difficult to actually find a good video game because we are completely saturated, right? So one of the things that Biz Markie did was amazing curation, right? So that hook, you got what I need, right? That came from Freddie Scott. Biz Markie did not, he didn't come up with that. He just sampled it, right? And Freddie Scott's song was a banger, right? Like, it just starts with these simple piano notes, and it just, like, within 3 notes, this artist has got you hooked. Like, you're like, I want the rest of this song, right? It just echoes with the inspiration of the bard, right? That dude, so Freddie Scott was an amazing musician, right? But that song had generally been forgotten. Nobody remembered it, right? Because so many other good songs had come out since. But Biz Markie delved the dungeon, right? He delved the dungeon of the old music and came up with the gleaming gold idol, right? And he brought it out, and he sold it, and he sold it. He traded it for gold, right? Because he had done the hard work of delving into the dungeon and getting the treasure, right? Nobody wants to listen to that old nonsense music because the vast majority of it is junk, right? But there are some bangers in there, right? And Freddie Scott's You Got What I Need was a banger, right? And Biz Markie went in, he slayed, the goblins of boredom, and he slayed the skeletons of quantity. There's just so much old bad music, right? And he went in and he delved that dungeon and he slayed it, and he came up with amazing stuff. And that's what Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is doing right now. They have got to choose the right settings to highlight, right? One of the things is they are not highlighting Greyhawk. I know Tasha came out of Greyhawk, but I'll tell you right now, choosing which Dungeons & Dragons settings get to live and which ones have to die, it's important work, right? Greyhawk should die. There is nothing special about that, and there certainly isn't anything special when compared to Faerun and Dragonlance, right? And recently, they're now making a decision that Dragonlance is going to be at the forefront, right? They renewed stories so that we're going to get new stories for Dragonlance, and they are putting Dragonlance front and center with Fizzbands, right? So this is curation. So Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has to choose the right settings. Dungeon Masters can go back and get the very best of all the nonsense modules that came out between 1974 and 2004, right? And run them in 5th edition. That is the curation work that Biz Markie did, and you can have a huge hit if you do it right. For your group, they could really dig what you were throwing down, right? So curation is... Now, how can players get into the curation game as well? Well, I'll tell you right now, I think players should be buying D&D 1E. I should be buying the D&D 1E Orange Spine Easleys. One, because I think they're going to go up in value, right? That's just my humble opinion. I'm not a finance guy, or I don't do financial predictions, but I do think that that's one of the reasons. Here's what I'll say: I'm buying it because I think they're going to go up in value, right? Actually, in the 6 months since I collected my collection, I think my collection is worth 3 times what I paid for it, right? But I was very fortunate in how I was able to get my collection, right? So that's one reason why you may want to collect it. You shouldn't do it just for that reason alone. In fact, I'm not suggesting anyone does it for financial reasons. But the Orange Spine Easleys are really amazing, and I really think that they're special. And a 5th edition player can collect the Orange Spine Easleys and go back and get some really awesome concepts, some directions for what quests they want to accomplish with their Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition characters. The other thing is, anything that was built in those fifth editions, your Dungeon Master may allow you to build them in 1st edition. Your Dungeon Master may allow you to do that in 5th edition, right? And to make choices, and so you can take any of the builds from the Orange Spine Easleys, anything from those books. The other thing is, there's great tips in the Wilderness Survival Guide and in the Dungeon Survival Guide that can be used to make good player choices, right? And also, if you just have those books at the table, if a 5th edition player buys the Dungeons & Dragons 1E Orange Spine Easleys survival tips and survival guide, and the Wilderness Survival Guide and the Dungeon Master Survival Guide, just having those books at the table, right, and doing nothing mechanical, but making smart choices based on the information in them, right, it really projects to your Dungeon Master that you love Dungeons and Dragons every edition, and you are telling them, I care deeply about this game, right, to the point where I'm going to bring ideas from older editions into the current edition. And it encourages that Dungeon Master to invest more time in the game, because they see that you are investing money, literally. You're investing time reading these older books, and that your dedication to the game spans your friendship, it spans your own personal time, it spans your own economics, and it spans all the editions of Dungeons and Dragons. And that when you sit at the table, you are honoring your Dungeon Master, you are honoring your players, the players who sit next to you, and you are honoring Gary Gygax, the work he did in 1974, and the work that ended in 2008 when he passed, right? It's a powerful, powerful message to your Dungeon Master. So Biz Markie was an amazing rapper. He lived an amazing life, and his life gave us a hard lesson for the D&D 5e design team, DMs, and players, and that lesson is curation. Delve the dungeon of quantity. Delve the dungeon of boredom. Slay those goblins, slay those skeletons of boredom and quantity, and get what you need to project your engagement with the game and to make your player character better, to make your campaign better, and if you're a designer, to make the game itself better. All that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Biz Markie. Did you enjoy his song? And what do you think are lessons from his life for all D&D 5e design team members, dungeon masters, and players? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.